What is it that attracts you to endurance?
Yeah, the big question to begin with. I guess it's that it not only relates to all the stuff I like about sport, but it also has some kind of carryover to life as well, I feel. And through doing these endurance things, it sort of builds your confidence, and it requires a lot of other characteristics, which I think are quite useful. So self-discipline being one of them to do the training, courage to do the races that you're sort of worried about, which is definitely a thing. Most people on the start line are quite scared, aren't they? Quite nervous, anxious. So it gets you used to sort of going through that stress. Stress being not always a negative thing either, kind of a positive thing in that light. So yeah, I think it sort of attracts me in that way. And then it's that kind of type 2 fun, isn't it? Where you do it, maybe you're not having the best sort of 5-6 hours, however long the race is, but then once you've finished it, a few days later, you find yourself looking for another race and you're like, how is this happening? But yeah, so many positives to it really, isn't there? And so many reasons I love it.
What do you think at the fundamental, because I actually feel like this is quite stoic in the fact of what you're doing is you're seeking out something challenging, something difficult, because you know that you're going to get some sort of reward, satisfaction from doing it. But a lot of society today is wide in the other way. It's if I sit at home and I watch Netflix and watch a 4-hour program and eat ice cream, I get reward immediately for that. What do you think it is in you that is seeking out that more stoic level of reward, I think, of doing a hard thing, a really tough thing, and then you get the reward later?
Yeah, it's tough to describe, isn't it? But I quite often like relate it to people as sort of unlocking a new area of your brain almost. So if I think my level is something, so if I've only ever gone, let's relate it to running. So if I've only ever run a marathon before, and then I go and do a 100k race, that's now my new level. So I've unlocked sort of some grey area where I didn't think I was able to do that, but now I can. And that's sort of now your limit. And then if you keep going through that in different areas, suddenly your limit becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And I feel like, again, it carries over to every sort of area of your life. If I can do a 14-hour race, for example, maybe I could work for 14 hours straight. Or if I can do a 20-hour race, maybe I could work for 20 hours straight with like undivided attention or whatever. So yeah, I feel like it really is that sort of unlocking a new level of your brain. I feel like it comes in stages. It's quite a nice feeling when you know you're now able to do something new. I think
You say the feeling. What is that feeling that you're looking for? Is it fulfillment? Is it a satisfaction? Or it's the I've done a hard thing and therefore, what is it? What is it that you think it is?
There definitely must be some fulfillment, because there isn't many people in the world who want to do a really long race and then, if they've got no supporters, for example, because it's finished at 2 a.m, go sit in their car on their own afterwards with a medal. There's probably not that many people who want to do that. But I guess, yeah, there has to be some fulfillment, but then there's got to be another side to it too as well, I guess. Not too sure how to best describe it, but there's something there.
Do you think it's something that plays into like growth, like really natural human growth of almost evolution, which is you're trying to push your body, your mind, to see how far you can take it?
Yeah, definitely. In some way, everyone wants to sort of see where their limit is, I think, don't they? There's just the people who want to know it enough that they go through stuff to find it out, and there's others who are quite happy just not finding that out. But I think for me, definitely, like I want to know where that point is. And that's sort of why I've not picked just one sport. I've picked a host of different sports, and I'm trying to push that boundary of all of them almost at the same time, because I want to find a point where I'm kind of like, that was too much for me. And I think in a weird sense, that would be quite nice to find something I'm like, that is the limit. But then obviously, if you can push that again and you do eventually get through it, it's an even better feeling, isn't it? So I guess just being able to do something you thought you'd never be able to do, the feeling of that in any sense of that is quite fulfilling. Again, back to that.
Well, I've never met anyone who has delivered or completed or competed in endurance activities across such a range I've never met anyone that's done. I've met people, and I've done sort of running as an endurance. You know, I've run marathons, and I've done the consistency of doing it every single day for a period of time, and the back-to-back marathons. But I've never known someone to do it across so many different disciplines. Share maybe like the different disciplines that you're doing it under.
Yeah, so kind of like we spoke about earlier, I like to just break it down into the different environments that you do it in. So I've got snow, water, and land. So snow being anything that's on snow or ice. And the ones that I've done for that would be the Finland 100-kilometer ice marathon. So that was 100 kilometers of ice skating on a frozen lake. And again, something I never thought I would ever be doing in my life, but the race popped up and it just seemed like a new opportunity. And yeah, I got training for it at Leeds Planet Ice, which was very unorthodox because the only people there are people on a date or like kids training for figure skating. So seeing me just doing laps and laps was, yeah, it was something new. But yeah, there's ice skating, cross-country skiing. I did the longest cross-country ski race in the world earlier this year. Ski mountaineering, so I've skied off the highest mountain in the Alps, Mont Blanc as well. Ski touring, so traveling long distances through the mountains. I started doing the Haute route, which is the longest ski touring route in the world. That sadly got cancelled because of weather. But that stuff happens, and there's a lot of sports that I've kind of started and not managed to achieve anything in yet because of that. But yeah, and then we go into water, so kayaking. I've done the DW canoe race, so the longest kayaking race in the UK, which is basically the length of the River Thames. Incredible race, just so good. And swimming, swum the longest lake in the UK. Sailing, I've sailed into the Arctic Circle. And then we've got all the land sports, the usual stuff. So 100k runs, Ironman distance triathlons. Yeah, and all the disciplines of cycling really as well. So yeah, there's plenty there. But what I have found, so like you say, it's so niche that I've managed to achieve stuff in all these sports. But the only way I've been able to do that is by finding correlations between the training that for all of them. And what you can do is you can take all that and you can put it into weekly sessions because it's useful for all of them. So if I use an example, if I was to do a squat in the gym, for example, that movement is probably useful for all 15 of those sports I've just listed. So you can take little bits out of all of them and there's stuff that's useful, and it's really about sort of honing in on them just to get the most out of your training. Because obviously there's only so many hours in the day, isn't there? So yeah, I found little loopholes, I think, in the training for stuff.
Well, that's what I was interested in, is like, how do you, with such a broad range, how do you train or get yourself in? Because ice skating is totally different to running and a totally different skill and totally different discipline. While you're still using your legs, you're also learning something completely different.
Yeah.
Like to be able to do that on a consistent basis. Like, so yeah, what's the consistent theme across them?
Well, we can use ice skating as a bit of an example because I basically that was one of the hardest things I've had to train for, because in the UK your options are very limited to train for that, aren't they? And like I said, I had to go to Leeds Planet Ice. It was the only way I could sort of get any specific training at all, and that is part of the training you need. You can do all the sort of generic stuff you want, but if you've not done anything specific, like if my technique's not there for ice skating, I'm never finishing. So that was that side of it. But aside from the specific, which was my time at Leeds Planet Ice, there was all the generic stuff as well. So for example, it's funny you said running. So I actually did use running in a way to train for it, because it's largely similar in some ways. So, for example, you're standing up and you're moving your legs forwards and backwards in that sort of sagittal forward plane for a long period of time. It's also strengthening all the tendons and ligaments that you would normally use for ice skating. So if we look at the knee, the ankle, the hip, it's still sort of holistically strengthening all them. And then really, if we look at sort of cardiovascular fitness as well, that's so broad, and it doesn't really matter what you train that in. It's still the same. Your heart still beats the same. Your lungs still function the same, no matter what race you're doing. So that's really one that you can train for in any method. And then you've obviously got the strength and conditioning side of it. So I can try and replicate the movements I will do in the ice skating race, but in the gym. So it's just about, trying to give yourself that best chance of being able to finish the race, even if you can't train for it. But obviously the specific stuff is like the peak of the triangle, really. So if you had all your cardiovascular, so your lungs and heart aren't giving up on you, then you've got your generic strength, so you've got a good base, basically, and then the specific really is sort of the top of the triangle. And you can do that for everything, really. There's always something that has a carryover, and that's kind of what I've used.
Interesting. Really interesting. What I'm interested, so that you're talking about 100K, what's that in miles?
60 miles, yeah.
Okay, so I'm think about running. I can relate a lot of this back to running because I've done a lot of running.
Yeah.
So 26 miles, that's a marathon. So you're talking about doing like a double marathon.
And a little bit,
and some.
And almost a half as well, isn't it, really?
Yeah, a double marathon and a half.
Running's an interesting one because running is definitely my nemesis. So out of all of those 15 sports, it's the one that I find it hardest to compete in. And it's purely because it's more unforgiving than all the others in terms of, if you look at the injury rates, they're so much higher than any other sport, purely because it's just constant like impact, isn't it? Just pounding away at the ground. And that 100K race, I think I did 280,000 steps. And if you look at how much weight goes through your knee joint, for example, per stride, it's something like 1.5 times your body weight. So if you think about that times 280,000, you're at a crazy figure, aren't you, really? It just needs time and a really slow build up because it's more reliant on sort of tendon and ligament strength than anything else. And a lot of the time with me doing so many races and so many different sports, I don't have that big gradual build that I can do with it if I'm training for other stuff at the same time. So running, definitely the hardest. But then if you take cycling, for example, the odds of you getting a tendon or ligament injury from cycling is so much lower. So as long as you can condition your heart, lungs, your cardiovascular is good, and you've got that muscular strength side of it as well, you're kind of golden to go for it, whatever distance you want. And there won't be really many repercussions, but obviously running, you can really do yourself some damage, can't you, if you overdo it? So
yeah, that's what I was thinking here, is that with running, the reason I stopped running those years ago is just because of injury. But I was doing extensive, marathons, and then the next day doing a marathon as well. I was doing extensive levels of running.
Yeah.
And after a period of time, I was like, well, my calf muscles, I've got real issues with my knees. This isn't good for me. But that's what I was trying to work out. Because your risk of injury with running is really high, but like you said, with the cycling, your risk of injury is really low because it's a softer impact.
Yeah.
So therefore, actually, I can understand your position, which is because you've got a level of fitness already and muscular build, it's actually just about learning then how to use that particular discipline, like you said, in this pyramid, because you have the foundations.
Yeah.
To be able to then try, because I think maybe that's the thing. You've got these huge foundations,
and then I just put a bit of icing on the cake, for example, don't I, at the end, and that's sort of how I've been able to do it. Really, never start from zero is the term I like to use as well. Never be starting right down there. Always be about 70-80% of the way with your training already, and then you just put a bit of specific on top, and it seems to go okay. Have you seen the loading capacity model before?
No.
Have you seen it?
Please explain.
It's quite big on YouTube at the moment, so I'll try not to butcher this. But basically, what it says is that it doesn't even have to be sport; it can just be any sort of activity. But if your loading capacity raised together, you're usually fine with anything. But if load goes too high above capacity, then that's when you're likely to get injured because your body can't tolerate it and you're doing more than it can tolerate. But if you just gradually go past with load and then you leave enough time for capacity to reach it, you can then just keep repeating that and eventually they go up together naturally. But when one goes way ahead of the other, that's when there becomes an issue. So I'll give a weird example, the limbo that you do at parties or whatever. If you ever watch a video of the world championships of that, they can get so low it's like almost flat to the ground. But if me and you tried that now, we'd both be in hospital, wouldn't we?
Well, it'd be embarrassing.
Yeah, and we'd have to help each other up as well, wouldn't we?
Having two grown men literally just falling around on the floor.
It probably wouldn't make a very good podcast either, would it? No. But yeah, they can do that, and it's just because they've followed that model and they've just gradually built it up together. And again, it's kind of proof that you can sort of do anything as long as you train for it right, I guess.
So let me explain those again. So it is the
load and capacity.
Load. So it's load and capacity. Let's break that down. So essentially, I see what you mean. So if I'm thinking about weight training, you build the load, and then of course your capacity, your ability to train at that level, then you go up a level. It's almost like progressive overload.
Yeah, literally the same thing, really, isn't it?
I've got you. Yeah, progressive overload. Yeah, because you're, and then this is how you're using it as well, which is like you're pushing yourself to a new level, recovering, pushing yourself to a new level, recovering, pushing yourself to a new level. How much of that do you think is mental versus actual fitness?
Interesting. Yeah, the mental side of it's hard, isn't it? Because you get people who are at either end of it, I guess. So a lot of people want to take that load just straight through the roof straight away, don't they? And they're always the ones who are constantly doing really well, then right back down here with an injury. Or you get the people who never really push themselves hard enough to get that load up. So, yeah, I guess a lot of it is mental, isn't it? But it's sort of having the experience in the way just to know where that capacity is and just knowing how much to push and how little to come back down. It is definitely a lot to do with your mental state in races as well. But you only really get it through experience, I think. You can read all the books on it and everything, but unless you've been there, you're not gonna know when you've overstepped it or not, I guess.
Yeah, we on the podcast we just recorded a few seconds ago, we were just chatting about like how self-improvement works, and it can be all these books, but you can read a book on how to do a press up, but you have to do the press up.
Yeah.
Like unless you actually do the work, like you're not going to benefit that much. You can do all the research you like, but you actually, with what you're talking about, because when I was running, how you're going to feel at the hour mark compared to the 2 hour mark or the 3 hour mark, like maybe you put it into when you started running and you started building your levels of endurance, like what was it like when your body started to fail?
Yeah, I've definitely taken it to that point quite a few times. I've been lucky enough that I've never pushed it to a point where I've not been able to continue, but I've definitely got it pretty close to that a few times. And yeah, it's not a good feeling knowing that maybe you should have done a bit more before you came to this, and that you're probably taking it a bit farther than you should go. The Royal Marines have that thing, don't they, where they say the 40% rule. So when you think you're completely done, you've still got 40% left. And I definitely do believe in that, and I think it's true. But it's what the repercussion of going that extra 40% is going to be. Because if you get so injured doing that, it takes a year out of your training. It's really not been beneficial at all, has it? But yeah, it's tough. And I think even in training, you can sort of, if you have people with you as well, and they can sort of help you push through, you get to know like how hard you can go, and you get to find some sort. It's like an internal barometer in a way of knowing how far you can go, I guess.
Yeah, like when do you? Because quite often your mind might be saying no, or you might be overriding that and saying no, we're going to do the distance today. You know, how much of it is like a mental battle with yourself because your lungs are like, beginning to fail, and you're like, no, we can push through. We're going to get through this. I always found it when I was running, it would go in waves.
Yeah.
And actually, I had to kind of get into a mental game with myself to distract me and think, focus on that tree. Think about this. And I create. It was like I was like playing a game with my mind all the time.
Yeah, I totally agree. The pain you get in a race is definitely not linear, is it? It definitely comes up and down, and it comes in waves. And I think that just shows it's mental, doesn't it? Because you can go to a stage and you're like, I'm in agony now. And then suddenly someone overtakes you and you start chasing them a little bit. And all of a sudden you've totally forgot that you were hurting a few minutes ago. And yeah, it's definitely not linear at all. So I always try and remind myself of that. I sort of think that if I'm at a point and I'm really struggling, I know that it's not going to last, because it never does. It always comes and goes. So just remembering that is quite useful, I feel.
What are the mental games or mental, how do you keep yourself? Because it's, you're talking about, I mean, the run, it's an all-day run. If you're going to run that level, or if you're going to cycle that level, it's all day. I mean, these are like extensive amounts of times.
Yeah. I play all kinds of mental games on myself. So the one I probably most like is just that I try and break the race down into the smallest possible numbers I can, and it just keeps my mind sort of busy. And then it makes it a bit nicer in terms of if you break 100k down and you're like, oh, I just have this many Ks left to do, or it's this far to the next checkpoint where I get food, and then you get like little wins. Mountaineering's big for that as well. So have you done any mountaineering? No. So once you get above sort of, for me, it's 4,000 meters, it starts to really kind of, you start feeling the altitude and everything gets a lot harder. You feel a lot weaker. But for me with that, it's sort of just looking up the mountain and looking at points. And it's like, well, okay, that rock, then I'll do this. That rock, then I'll do this. And just breaking it down. And yeah, after you do enough of those stages, next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'm 3/4 of the way through here. With me as well, I know that if I'm over halfway, there's no backing out really, is there? Because you've more than halfway. Why would you come to a race to not finish it when you've gone more than halfway? So for me, in my own mind, it's just that first half. And if I can break that down into enough chunks that I get past that, then it's sort of it's a sealed deal in a way.
Interesting. Because during that time, because you're running such distances, I imagine you can't listen to anything. Or can you? Because the battery life, I don't know, can you listen to things?
Headphones are a weird one, and they're sort of in a way frowned upon in racing, oddly. Okay. Yeah. Like some people do, in all disciplines really, but yeah, it gets a weird sort of, a bit of a weird...
Why is it frowned upon?
I think it's more because it's not... I think there's a danger side to it. So if you're cycling, you've got headphones in, maybe you can't hear a car or whatever, or maybe you won't hear the marshal shouting you or something like that. But I think as well, it's not as sort of primitive, is it? And a lot of the races have sort of a big history of how they've come about, and a lot of them are sort of trying to replicate how it first came about. And I guess all this new technology, headphones and stuff, I don't know. It's weird. It's an odd one, but I've never used them personally.
Yeah.
But it would make it a lot easier if I did, because it does just take your mind to that external place, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's really interesting. I had no idea that you weren't allowed to use like headphones and those sorts of things, or it's frowned upon.
So some it's a complete no. There's quite a lot where it is that. But yeah, there's a few you can, but just people tend not to, I guess.
It is. I walk a lot and I walk distances, and and it's only latterly that I've started walking without headphones, just so I can kind of like be more present, be more in the moment. Yeah. As soon as you put your headphones in, there's something it takes away from the moment. And it's like, it's almost, and I was thinking of it recently and I was trying to work out, is this numbing? If I'm listening to really loud music, is this numbing the situation? And I'm not being as present as I could be. But like, I think it goes back to your point around it's not primitive. Yeah. Like what you're trying to do is test your body, push your body with nothing external. And it's almost like if you've got music, then it's, because David Goggins always says,
you've
got to be there with your mind on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is something to that, definitely, because obviously if you've got 10 hours just with yourself in a race, you're going to go to some weird places thought-wise, aren't you? And I actually quite like that in a way, because you do really get to know yourself, because when else in your life do you have 10 hours where you're just on your own in the middle of nowhere with no external stuff going on? It's quite unusual for that to happen, isn't it? So I quite like that in a way. And I feel like I know myself better from that. But there's the other side of it, isn't there? So how much of my training would I do if I never used music at all? Because, I mean, if you've just done a 9 to 5 work day and then you've got a 4-hour endurance session, are you really going to be able to use your discipline to get through that without anything? Maybe not. Does it make it easier? Of course it does. So I think there's a time and a place, isn't there?
Yeah. Okay. But what you were saying just then is fascinating to me about getting to know yourself. 10 hours, you with yourself for that period of time. You say your mind can go to some quite weird places. What are you alluding to there? Maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, what am I alluding to? I think just with that amount of time, you start to think about literally everything, don't you? And it goes down all kinds of rabbit holes. So decisions you made in the past, where you are presently, what you could change in your life. You start thinking about stuff you would have never thought of, people you met before. Yeah, I don't know. It really does just go down any sort of path, and it can go anywhere. And yeah, I wouldn't say mine always goes to something specific. Sometimes I even just get so engrossed on, well, it depends what the race is. So, I was saying about that ice skating one to begin with. So that for me was one of my favourite races I've ever done, because I was so in the moment for the whole thing, because it required so much technique to get that on the ice, and there were so many things that could go wrong. It was like the most mentally taxing race I'd probably ever done, just because I was constantly having to think about technique. And if it went aside from that for any moment, I'd sort of just crash. So that was quite a nice one. But then running, for example, no one's falling over when they run, really, are they? Unless it's obviously super technical. But yeah, so with running ones, yeah, your mind goes crazy. But I wouldn't say there's an avenue it always goes down.
No, but it's interesting because you're actually being quite reflective. It's almost like you're thinking about your life, things you've done, things you'd like to do, isn't it? It's like your mind is, it sounds reflective.
It's weird, actually, because I come up with most of my new race ideas on the races themselves, just because I have so much time to think. And I do come up with most of my, it's like a sort of guidance. I come up with most of my guidance of where I want to go in my life on my races and my training as well. Because it is just it's like a mindfulness practice in a way, isn't it, I guess, to a degree.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I remember Eddie Izzard talking about, I don't know if you ever saw his Marathon Man.
Yeah, did he run a load of back-to-back ones?
Yeah, he did
Was it Sports Aid? I can't remember.
I can't remember what it was for.
It was on TV though, wasn't it?
He raised millions, and he ran Britain essentially, and then I want to say it's 46 marathons back to back, something like that.
It was a lot, wasn't it?
It was a huge number, and he only did 6 weeks of training. And but then he was talking about it, he was reflecting on it later, and he was kind of explaining, because he's done this a few times now. The point I was coming back to about you saying it's mindfulness, he describes it as being very zen. He said, because some people would look at that and go, it's very extreme. And he goes, no, this is my chill out time. This is my time when I get to know myself. It's very zen. It's quite I'm outside with the world. He said it's actually he described it as a zen, like a mindfulness practice.
Yeah. Well, have you, I was actually watching a video on some of the motorcyclists who do the Ironman TT. And they were saying that because obviously they're going at crazy speeds and they're millimeters off walls and stuff like that. But they were saying that it's almost the most relaxed they can be, and they hear opera music in their head as they do it, which for a normal person, you would think at that speed you'd be going, ah. But obviously for them, it's just so different, isn't it? Have you heard of Alex Honnold as well?
No, I don't.
So he climbed El Capitan, which is this massive rock wall in Yosemite. He did it without a rope as well. Which is just crazy because it's 3,000 feet, something like that. But because of all the visualization he did with it, he basically said that the whole time he did it wasn't stressful or anything. It was just going through the motions, and he said it was quite quieting for his mind and just soothing and almost quite bliss, really. Which obviously, watching someone climb to that height with no rope, you would not think that, would you? But it just shows, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah. Just reflecting on that. Imagine being that distance high.
Yeah. It's well worth a watch on YouTube, for sure.
And if you slip, it's game over.
Yeah. Well, you only get one shot, don't you? That kind of stuff.
but he's feeling calm and bliss.
Yeah.
And the rest of us are like climbing up just a couple of steps and you're like, get me down from here. I'm not comfortable at all.
Yeah, it's well worth a watch. It's incredible what he does. Yeah.
For someone else who's like interested in this level of endurance, where do you think someone should be starting?
I would say the starting point is sort of the same for everyone. It's just pick a distance you think would be far enough that you could finish if you did a little bit of training, but far enough that you would also feel like you've achieved something if you did it. Otherwise, there's kind of no point in doing it, I guess. And that distance, probably everyone can kind of have a rough guess at, and it doesn't have to be exact. And then from that point, you just sort of build on that. So by the time you finish that race, you'll know how you feel in yourself, and you'll be able to go, I reckon I could maybe do another 10K on top of that. The next thing you've done a half marathon. And then you're like, oh, could I run home from this point now? Maybe marathon. And then again, next thing you look back and yeah, you're doing ultras, and that is exactly how it happened for me. I just judged how I felt on every finish line and then just added on what I thought I would be able to do extra. And or if I didn't think I could do anything extra, I looked at what I did to train for it and thought I'll add in a few more hours and see if that will get me to the next level. And it really does just spiral from there, and it gets kind of addictive because, yeah, you realise, well, you start just pondering more and getting more curious, which is quite a nice thing, really, isn't it?
Mm. Well, you said the word curious there, and that links nicely into getting to know yourself, because you're getting to know yourself at the point where you're pushing yourself to your limits, and each time you're trying to see, can I push myself further? Can I? And I suppose, what are you trying to find out there? You're curious to find out what you're made of. You're curious to find out.
Yeah, it is what I'm made of in a way, isn't it? And I don't really think about it like that, but I guess that's definitely a way of putting it. For me, it's just I do want to know where that limit is, and then just being able to push a little bit further past that. The feeling you get from that is quite something, really. So yeah, I think that's it for me.
So with training and nutrition, so thinking about the nutrition side of things, how do you get yourself prepped and ready? Like, what sort of foods are you eating? Like, what's the sort of things, what sort of regime do you have?
Yeah, I sort of leave nutrition to the side in a way, and I really focus on the actual training itself, because what I found with nutrition is it does vary throughout all the different races, and I don't even focus on it in the training really, because I think if I dial it in perfectly in the training, will I get a bit fitter? Yes, but then if I'm totally reliant on that nutrition on race day, it's just never going to happen. Because if we take mountaineering, for example, when you're up the mountain, you'll eat whatever there is, and obviously the more you take up there, the more you have to carry. So it really becomes sort of like, do I want to carry all that? Or would I be better off just eating less and carrying less? Because I think it burns for every extra kilo you carry. It's something like an extra 100 calories an hour. So you really don't want to be carrying it more than you have to. And it's the same in a lot of races where you can take loads of stuff, but then it's like 10 hours into a race, will I be able to eat that thing? Maybe not. So it's not even worth taking it, even though it might be the best thing for you. So yeah, it varies so much. And then a lot of the unsupported races, again, you just need to keep that weight down as much as you can. Otherwise, because if you're carrying an extra 3 kilo for 20 hours, it's really going to hammer you in terms of energy. And then a lot of the races too, if they're supported, they'll give you what you can eat, and it's sort of just potluck what's there. So if you're so dialed into only eating a certain like number of things and none of that's there, you're going to be a little bit upset, and you're going to be worrying, oh, will this upset my stomach? Will this? So I kind of I tend not to worry about it too much. The only things I do look at is protein intake. So I try and get sort of 2 grams per kilo of body weight. So for me, it's 160 a day. I really focus on that because there's a lot of science behind that in recovery and just, mainly recovery and performance. But aside from that, I tend not to look at it too much. I just like to get the calories in, really. Not saying that's the best way to go about it, but I've found yeah, I found the training makes the bulk of the difference, really. So I tend to focus on that a bit more.
Got you. So while we're talking about nutrition, and I appreciate you sharing kind of like your approach there. When you're in a long distance endurance, and you're, you know, we're talking 10 hours, 12 hours type experience, like what are you doing for nutrition during that time? Is it like if you don't want to be carrying things,
Yeah.
like what can keep you going? And when I've done marathons before, you do need to eat some after. I always find out, like, the more trained I am, the further back it goes in terms of like how quickly do I need food. But I don't know whether you should be onboarding some liquids or electrolytes, or what's kind of your approach?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can look at this, because the sort of three types of races are: you get a completely unsupported one where you need to take absolutely anything. You might get sort of a challenge race where it's unsupported, but what you could do is you could go out the night before and you could just hide stuff under rocks at regular places. So that's something I've had to do before. It's a nightmare, because obviously you're driving around for out. If it's a big race too, you're driving for like 6 hours the night before, just hiding Mars bars or whatever under rocks. But that's obviously an option if it's a bit of a challenge thing. Or there's obviously the supported side where you're going to eat whatever they give you, basically. But in terms of what I sort of would do nutrition-wise, so one of the best things that's just sort of, I think it's getting a bit more popular nowadays, is sweat testing. Have you heard of it before?
No, Karen.
So they basically like pinprick you and take some of your blood, and you sit there and it analyzes it. And from that, they can work out how much you sweat and basically exactly what nutrition you would need for however long your race is going to be. So I would say that is probably gold standard. And a lot of my friends who are starting to win like ultras and stuff, that's exactly what they're doing. And they'll just get so used to taking on whatever it is. Maybe it's some sort of electrolyte drink or some carbohydrate drink. They'll just get so used to just taking them every 90 minutes or whatever, and they'll just go off that. But that's probably quite niche. What the approach I take, so if we look at what our body has in terms of stores, you've got 90 minutes of carbohydrate stores, or you've got 48 hours of fat stores, and that's sort of at any one time. So if possible, if you can stay in zone, do you know the zones for training as well?
Explain.
Yeah. So the zones are very, very important really in endurance. So it's basically just one to 5, although there's lots of different variations. But if we go with the 1 to 5 one, zone 1 being a percentage of your maximum heart rate, and they all are really, but just the higher up the zones you get, the higher that percentage is. And the higher up the zones you go, the more energy you need. And the higher zones, you have to burn carbohydrates. The lower zones, you can burn fat. So if you can stay in those lower zones, so zone 2, it'll just burn fat, and that doesn't produce lactic acid, and you've got 48 hours of it. So if you can stay down there, you can go for a long period of time with not that much food.
So you're talking about heart rate.
Yeah.
So you're keeping your heart rate down.
Yeah.
So therefore you're focused on fat.
Burning fat instead of carbs. Yeah, and it just means that you can go for so much longer without having to take on those carbs. But then, you know that term, like when you bonk or hit the wall or whatever?
Yeah.
So I think everyone probably has a different version of that, but the version I would use is when you've gone so hard that you've run out of carbohydrates and you can no longer keep that pace because you have to go to burning fat, which is a lower sort of heart rate zone. That is what I'd say that feeling is. And I've definitely felt that a lot of times. And again, it's just sort of knowing your body a bit, isn't it? Knowing when to push, knowing when to back off. Or you just do it off a heart rate monitor and a watch like a lot of people do.
Okay. All right, so the zone, so what you're trying to achieve is zone 2 essentially, zone 2 cardio. So therefore you're burning into fat storage.
Yeah.
So you're trying to reduce how much you then need to take on.
Yeah, exactly that. It depends what you're trying to do, though, I guess. If you're trying to win a marathon, then obviously, even though it's a long race, you still want to be just hammering the carbohydrates so you can push really, really hard. But then if you're going for 48 hours and you've got no support, your only option really is zone 2. It also... I've not really read this anywhere, but it's like a self-discovery for me. The higher you push in those zones, the more toll it takes on your body. So, and I've worked this out. I've been recently trying to set the 100k ski erg record, Have you been on a ski egg much before?
No, go for it.
Yeah, but anyway, it's that one where you just pull it down like that in the gym.
Oh,
All the gyms and CrossFit places have them. But every time I've been doing that, it keeps either glitching or breaking the monitor because it's such a long sort of race, 8 hours on it. But what I've been noticing is, I can go at different speeds on it, and I very much feel at different points I need to take stuff on. So if I push 2 minutes for every 500 meters, I'll have to be eating constantly all the time. Whereas if I go 2:15, I can maybe eat once every hour and a half or something, and it's like noticeable. And you can also notice it really easily, just when you've pushed a bit too hard and not eaten enough as well. It's really that's definitely the thing that's made me notice it the most. Anyway, I think it's because you're in sort of a confined indoor area, nothing external's happening, there's no weather change, that you're not going into wind or not into wind, so it's very like trying to think of the word, controlled. It's like a controlled thing to do, isn't it? So yeah, and people could try it as well.
Yeah they're tough. So you're doing that for how long?
So if I want the record, I need under 8 hours 30. Yeah.
8 hours. I mean, even doing that for 8 minutes is pretty tough.
yeah. You've just got to admit that it's happening, and just that's actually. So I probably should have said this earlier. This is another method I use. So I set my expectation on the start line, and the expectation is usually that I know it's going to hurt. So I'm sort of telling myself that on the start line, but then at the same time, if it wasn't going to hurt and there wasn't going to be any struggle. When I say hurt as well, I don't mean in a negative connotation. I mean like sort of in a pushing yourself way, like if you were to go hard on a bike or something and you get tired, that kind of hurt. But I set that expectation of it's going to be a little bit painful, but it needs to be, otherwise I've chosen the wrong race. And if there's no suffering at all and I breeze it, it's kind of not going to have any feel of achievement to me. So I think setting the expectation is a really good thing to do if you're looking for something.
So you are proactively looking for it to be tough. You want it to be hard.
Exactly, yeah. If it wasn't, you're really sort of... There's definitely no personal development in doing something you knew you could do all along without suffering while doing it. Oh, suffering's an odd word too, isn't it? Because again, that has a negative connotation. And it's probably not even the right word, but again, there's suffering, struggle, whatever sort of word. I guess hardship is maybe a better word for it.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was running, I can remember when I developed at that stage. I mean, I'm talking 3 or 4 years ago now. 2020, I did a lot of running. I did 74 half marathons in the year, and I did 31 back-to-back. And I did the last...
That's incredible. Well, it is incredible.
And so in that one, so I did I raised some money for charity, and so 31 marathons back-to-back, half marathons back-to-back, and then the last day I did a double marathon. So I did a marathon one day and a marathon the next day. And it was like... It was all about like pushing. I mean, these are nothing close to your distances, right?
I don't know. That's incredible, to be honest.
But I think, but it was that it was that like I wonder how far I can push it. And the thing that I found in those 31 half marathons, I felt like when I got to day 15, 16, 17, I was like, it's not hurting. Yeah. It's like I'm pushing myself, and now I'm curious to find out how far I can keep going. Yeah. And it's like this thing, I was like, I'm asking for more energy from the universe. I'm asking for something, and I'm getting more. And I remember when I finished, I thought, I'm not going to want a day off here. I actually carried on doing some running because then the next day I did like a 90-minute run, and I was like, that was far too easy. Yeah, I shouldn't have. Yeah. I didn't want to stop. There was something in me saying, don't stop. Like there was something to saying, just keep going because you're improving, keep going. And I remember writing a note to people who'd supported, and I said, this is one of the most transcendent times I've ever had, the clearest I've ever been, the best I've ever felt. This was like a real changing time. Yeah. And then like when you're not doing that, your body sort of then regresses. It's a funny thing because then like you're asking for more, you get more. You ask for more pain and suffering, you get better. Yeah. I think I'm trying to find the words.
What made you do that in the first place?
I think the gyms were closed because it was.
Oh, was it COVID?
COVID
time.
2020.
Yeah,
the gyms were closed, and
more free time.
Loads of free time.
Yeah.
And we weren't traveling anymore. And I was like, I still want to go to the gym every day, but the gyms are closed. So what do I do with these 2 hours every day? And then I was like, okay, well, I've never really done much running. I'd just go outside and start running. One day I ran for 20 minutes. The next day I ran for 30 minutes. Next day I ran for 45 minutes. And within 6 weeks, I was like running for an hour or two.
Yeah, what you're describing is exactly what I said about it. Just spirals, doesn't it? And next thing you know, you're doing this crazy thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and while I was out running, because I also thought, well, what can I do with these 2 hours? And by then I'd ran most days for 6 weeks. And I thought, there's 31 days in May. Let's do it for a month. Because funny enough, it's when I was discovering podcasts and I was listening to Joe Rogan, I was listening to David Goggins, and they were like doing 30 marathons in 30 days. And I was like, okay, all right, well, maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's what these elite people do. And then I kind of tried. But the amazing thing was, I suppose, when I reflect on that time was that I went from someone who had never ran before at all, really. I'd go to the gym. I'd done a tiny bit of like running on the treadmill. To someone 6 weeks later is now doing a half marathon every single day and then a double marathon at the end. And I was like, that's where that curiosity came in, which was, this is before I had children as well, by the way. So like the last 2 days, I didn't have to, I set myself the target just to run a half marathon. But I thought, I wonder if, because it's a Saturday, I just happened to naturally end it on a Saturday and a Sunday, just the way it worked out. I was like, I wonder if I can do a marathon then a marathon. And funny enough, the second marathon was faster.
Really?
And that's what it's this amazing thing where you ask for more, you push yourself more, and you get back more.
Yeah.
So I can see your attraction with doing more.
Yeah, and I can even see from you going through that hardship, as you're talking about it now, it's definitely something you're very proud of, isn't it? So this is what I mean, it always seems to be worth it.
Yeah. And it's actually funny enough thinking about it, the injury with running, because then I got injured 6 months later, and I was like, oh, I have to rest here. Because then that's what happens with running, unfortunately, if you don't always run correctly and it kind of gets you. But what you're doing is like, you're also finding ways of doing this in a, like with cycling, or you can do it in a way which isn't then going to offer you any long-term issues. Yeah.
I try and structure my races too, so they won't affect each other too much. So last year I did a 200-mile bike race, and then 5 days later I did that 100k ultramarathon.
Really?
Yeah, and it was just the worst idea ever. I still had DOMs going into this on the start line of the run, and I was thinking, this is not going to go well. It went fine, but obviously the recovery after that took so long.
So I mean, 5 days is not enough, is it?
No, not for 200 mile on the bike. And that 200 mile, I planned on just like taking it easy and just making sure I could do the distance, and then it basically just turned into an all-out race, right up in the high zones that I was talking about earlier the whole time. Yeah, it just took so much out of me. But now I'm a bit sort of smarter with how I do it, and I'll do something like a run, then I'll do kayaking, which doesn't really involve my legs. I'll do cycling, then something else, rock climbing, that doesn't involve my legs too much again. So I try and structure a bit nicer nowadays, really.
You said it ended up into a race. Was there something inside you, or just the way that race started landing, which you thought, I want to go for this?
I have to do this in every race to myself, because my background is like short stuff. It's like hour-long triathlons, really, just all out as fast as you can go, leave everything on the sort of finish line. And that I did that for so many years as a kid. And then now I'm doing these long things. As soon as that gun goes, I wanna go back to that, and I have to just that is the first hour of my race, is saying calm down, slow it down. And once I get through that, the race obviously all breaks up and it gets a bit more settled and everything's a bit nicer, and then it's easy to just stick at a nice pace. But yeah, that first hour of every race, I just need to keep repeating that to myself, basically.
Well, the thing is, you've got the adrenaline and you're there and it's exciting, and the gun goes and then you're off.
Yeah.
And there's a part of you wanting to really go for it.
Yeah, I found as well with a lot of races too. So I found because I've been doing this like it's almost 2 decades now that I've been sort of racing, just any kind of sport. I know my own pacing a little better, so I always find that if I go do like a local park run now, and they start it, everyone sprints off every time, and I'll just sort of hang back nicely jogging, and then about 600 meters later, I know that they'll all slow down dramatically, and I'll just come through nicely. And it happens in like every single race where there's a lot of novices. So yeah, it's just about getting to know yourself, isn't it? Getting to know your pace, know what you can do, and then you can go from there.
You mentioned childhood then.
Yeah.
And like when you were younger, were you also as motivated? Do you also naturally like lend into running or like these different activities?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I started with football up until about 12, I reckon. And I wasn't even that interested in that. I think, honestly, looking back on it, I think the only reason I used to go was because my dad enjoyed talking to all the other dads at the football. So yeah, that didn't really have much of a spark in it for me. But then I basically struggled with my knees a bit. And my dad was like, why don't you have a go at triathlon? Because your knees will just stay warm after the swim and the bike so they won't hurt on the run.
Okay.
And I was like,
that's great
I
advice.
was like, sure, whatever. So he took me down to this triathlon. I had no kit. I couldn't even swim. And I somehow managed to finish. I actually did okay as well. And yeah, that was where it all really kicked off, that competitive drive, I think. Yeah, and then it just took over my life like some stuff does. And yeah, 10 years later, I was still kind of racing, and yeah, it really just took over. But that, I'm not in that sort of headspace anymore, because that was very much, I know what the fastest people are doing. I need to do that religiously, and there's no give or take with anything. If I'm going on a holiday, it needs a swimming pool, needs a track near it. If I'm eating this, I need to do an extra hour the next day. It was so religious, and it took over everything. And that's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just at that time in my life it was okay, but then I don't need that anymore, and I don't kind of want that anymore in a sense as well. I'd rather be able to enjoy other stuff and sort of know that I could still turn up and do this long stuff. And if I want to miss a session, maybe I'll just have a little bit more hardship on the day, and you can sort of judge that in your own mind, which I feel a lot better. Yeah.
Did you find then you put yourself in those early days of doing the triathlons that you're putting yourself under too much pressure, or you're trying to be too perfect, or you're trying to compete too much? There's part of you that took over?
Yeah, definitely. There's so much pressure on it, isn't there? Because how it would work, I think there'd be about 8 races in the series, and they'd all be about a month apart or something. You'd do one, maybe someone would beat you by 5 seconds, and then you're going away looking for 5 seconds in the next month, and you're training to somehow beat them, and it just takes over your life. Yeah, and it is stressful too, because at that point for me, I was hoping there would be a future in it, and maybe there could have been, who knows, but I'm happy it's not gone down that route. But yeah, it's just, brutal. So cutthroat as well. Yeah, tough.
Highly competitive,
Yeah.
cutthroat, brutal. But now it sounds like you're in a great place because you're doing it for enjoyment and that natural being curious about what am I capable of, how far I can push it.
Yeah,
and it feels like that's a better energy.
Definitely. And some of these races I've done as well, like the skiing and the ice skating, they're so sort of, for a British person to do them too, they're so niche. And like I've seen places while doing them that probably a lot of people have never seen. And like when you're there, it's quite breathtaking and incredible. So that longest cross-country ski race in the world, that was in Lapland. And like imagine skiing through Lapland. Like, yeah, it was tough because obviously so cold. But at the same time, what a beautiful place. And like I would have never thought I'd have ever gone to Lapland for anything. So yeah, it really is worth it.
And that's one of the things, isn't it, here, is you're really, because you're outside, you're appreciating, you're going somewhere where most people don't get to go. For a period of time, most people never get to do that.
Yeah.
And you're seeing parts of the world which are incredible. Like, there's something special about doing that as well. And I think that's what Eddie Izzard was talking about, saying it's very zen.
Yeah, well, some of the races they come up with now, they'll send them through like the nicest places you could ever think to go. And even the running ones, they're just, some of the routes now are just incredible. Like they do the Great Wall of China marathon, don't they? There's all sorts of stuff that would just be so good to do. Yeah. Do you have any running planned, or have you put that to bed now?
I think with running, I always have a drawback to it. I'm just ultra concerned about my calves.
Yeah.
So because I carried on running, and that's why I did end up doing 74 half marathons that year, because I just enjoyed it and loved it. I would just go off and run outside of the, but that was 2020. And then because I got injured, both my calf muscles, I was just like, I can't even, there was a point where I couldn't even run.
Did they both go together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that must have been down to technique or my shoes or whatever.
Yeah.
And then what I found is that the next year when I was like, okay, I've rested now for 3 or 4 months, I couldn't even run to the shop without pulling the calf. And then so that's when I spoke to a few specialists and a personal trainer. And then I realised back then I was like, okay, I've got to take my training in a totally different route. But I absolutely loved it. And I wouldn't have stopped. I would have carried on going, and I've gone to longer and longer distances. Yeah. So I don't know now. Here we are, 2025. So it's been a couple of years since I've ran in any way. So will I get back into it? I've always wanted to, but I've just been ultra cautious with my calf muscles. Yeah. But maybe there's another way, right? Maybe I can, I walk very long distances because it's low impact.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can walk for 1, 2, 3 hours. Yeah. I know we're talking about a different thing, but we're kind of like, that's very zen to me. I'll walk around here.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe there's an inspiration I can take from you here. Is just do it in a different way.
Or maybe you just need another sport. Or I wouldn't give up the running though. I think you'll easily be able to go back to it. I just think the hard thing for you is obviously that first time you did it, you went into it like the fact that you did 6 weeks and then all that is not even fitness wise, just in terms of your actual body's genetic sort of resilience. That is incredible that you were able to just do that through that. But now you've done that in your head, that's probably your level, isn't it? So if you're going back, you're thinking, 6 weeks and I'll be able to do a half again or whatever. But it's just about dialing it back, isn't it? And just building it back up slowly. Yeah. But calves so I have like a thing with injury as well with endurance sports, and how I tend to look at it is if I get some sort of muscular issue, so your calves being one of them, in a weird way I almost laugh about it, because muscles get so much blood flow, they tend to recover really quickly. So if I get anything muscular, I'm like so happy that it's just muscular and not a tendon or a ligament. Okay. So there's that way of looking at it, and they do react really well to training and stuff. But if it's so now I've got a better sort of judgment of my body and where all the anatomy of it is and stuff like that, I know when to push and when not to push. So if it feels muscular, I'm quite happy just carrying on. But if it starts to feel tendon or ligamenty, you start thinking that could be 3 to 6 months out or something. So maybe don't push then. Yeah.
So you might be in a race and you know that you've got injured, and you're actually analysing how the impact of that injury at the time, to think, is this muscular or is it ligaments? Yeah. If it's muscular, you think, okay, I might get over this quite quickly, so therefore it's worth the risk of pushing myself further. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, if it's muscular, I'll just go through it. Yeah, every time, because I know I'll be able to recover from that in short period of time, especially if with my races I do like a lower body one then upper body one or something, so I'm just thinking I've got double the amount of time before I really need this to be fixed. So yeah, if it's muscular, and I guess for the general populace who don't have that anatomical knowledge, it's sort of, if it's at a joint, maybe there's a risk it's a tendon or a ligament. If it's in the middle of something, so if it was there or there, it's probably a muscle, isn't it? And I think that's something you can kind of go off a bit. I think everyone subconsciously knows what's hurting as well, don't they? Right. Have you ever had a niggle and you've sort of poked it and you've been like, that feels hard, it's on the bone, maybe it's a bone, or you poked it and been like, that feels pretty soft. I think everyone subconsciously knows like when to push and when not to. It's just having enough sort of emotional intelligence to take yourself away from the race and be like, maybe I should stop, maybe I should continue, you know?
So, but you're almost doubling up the pain, because you've got your heart, your lungs, your mind, but now you've got this pain in your calf, or you've got your pain in your bicep, or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And you're kind of doubling it up a bit.
Yeah, I think so. The cardiovascular side of things, I always say to people like that, in an ideal world, that should just be a given, that like, you know, your heart and lungs and everything is just going to work for that period. Because realistically, you can't, obviously, I know people have heart attacks and stuff, but let's say the majority of the time, you can't really do any damage to them. They're just going to function to the best of their ability. But you can train them through anything, can't you? Any kind of cross training, no matter what endurance stuff you're doing, it's all working them the same. So they should really be a given. But on race day, well, again, it's like a little bit of a pyramid. So if I say cardiovascular is the bottom, and hopefully that's a given, then on top of that, I've got muscles. And again, I like to think that they're kind of a given too, because in your training, if you've done enough specific stuff and you've done a bit of long stuff before the actual race, you're going to know what's going to start to hurt and at what point it usually starts to hurt. And then you can train that in the gym or find a way to basically make it so that that hurts in a longer period of time, so you can prolong that. So I think muscles are sort of a given too. Obviously, you can be unlucky with them, can't you? But I think muscles are sort of a given as well. But then it's really like tendon strength takes a while to develop. Like we're talking 6 weeks or something, 4-6 weeks. Whereas muscles, I mean, you go to the gym once and you get DOMs and then you recover and they feel so much better the next time you train, don't they? Whereas tendons aren't like that. So tendons, you need to treat them a bit more with a sort of longevical approach to them, really, and just trying to extend out how much load you've given them. So tendons, really, in everything I do now, is what I worry about. Yeah, oddly.
Interesting. How have you learned that? Is it the matter of because you're trying to push yourself, and it's like it's so much more than just the fitness side of things? You're now learning about the limitations of your body and where an injury might occur. Is that something you've naturally needed to learn, or you've naturally, like, how did you find out all of this stuff?
I basically just thought back to every single injury I've ever had and why it's occurred, really. And I tend not to really get many muscle issues at all. In fact, if I think back, I've probably never really had any sort of muscular issue. And I think that's just from training age, and training age being how many years you've trained. And obviously I've trained quite a lot of years now, but I've not really done any specific stuff. It's just been a bit of everything. But through that, they've got pretty resilient to just doing anything. So yeah, when I look back to all my other injuries, they're all sort of tendon based. And every time it's just through overloading them, basically, whether that be in races or training. So yeah, I try and think about what movements are loading what joint, and then are they loading that in the way I need for the race I'm going to do. And yeah, you can get quite in depth with it, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's quite common sense at the end of the day. Like if you're moving your arm like that, for example, the tendons that are doing that want to be loaded. So maybe hitting a racquetball or a squash ball isn't going to load them in that way, but maybe doing a bicep curl or a tricep extension would. So just thinking about it logically, thinking about what movement you're going to do, how you can load that movement.
Talking to you is motivating me to go out and want to run.
Yeah, well, after this, we'll talk about some ideas, see what races we could get you doing.
Yeah. What's the next event that you're working towards?
I think the next one for me is it's a swim one, and it's not actually a race. It's more of like a sort of charity challenge thing. But how they do it is they usually do it as a relay. So you can sign up as a team of, I think it said 1 to 8, and it's 24 hours at a lake. And these relay teams will do as many laps as they can of a 1 mile route swimming in the 24 hours. I, being me, signed up on my own, and I'm going to see if I can do a mile every hour for 24 hours. Wow. So a 24-hour swim is the next one.
24-hour swim.
Yeah.
24-hour swim.
Well, 24-mile swim. I guess if I'm doing, I think a mile will take me, if I'm trying to take it steady, about half an hour every hour. So I'll be swimming for 12 hours-ish.
So you'd swim for half an hour, take a rest.
Yeah,
swim for half an hour again, take a rest.
Yeah, and just repeat for 24 hours. this is something I've never done, so quite apprehensive. But the way I'm trying to think of it is I've done races longer than 24 hours where there's been no rest. So to me, this is looking a lot more promising, a lot nicer. Being able to just get out the water, spend a bit of time with my friends, my girlfriend, whatever, then go back in. It sounds a lot more fun. And I think this one is more about just seeing what my body's capable of in quite a nice environment, really. So I'm not as nervous about this one. I'm more looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if going for a 12-hour swim over 24 hours is defined as nice. But like I can see your logic. What do you think the challenges are going to be with that? Because you're swimming, then getting out, and your body has to recover. But then you also need to get your body back ready to go back and swim for because half an hour is not a huge amount of time.
Yeah, no, it's not. The issue with this I'm seeing really is the constant warming up and cooling down.
Yeah.
And I'm actually seeing this in a way as more of a training swim than anything, because there's a lot of other big swims I want to do this year. So I'm sort of using this as a gauge for how far I'm able to go at this point in time. And then hopefully from that, I can then see where I'm at in relation to the other stuff I want to do. But yeah, it's just going to be so interesting to see. Because obviously everything I've ever done has just been you start and then you finish. Whereas this one, it's like start, finish, start, finish, start. So yeah, I'm actually very curious about how this is going to go, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you raise money for charity as part of some of these? Or
I used to, yeah. When I first started, I would try and do it. But then it was just getting difficult with me doing sort of so many of them. And I think as well, it got to a point where, because I was sort of racing all the time, everyone who I would usually go to would be like, "Oh, well, you only did one last weekend. I'm not giving you another fiver." So yeah, I've tapered off with that, to be honest. And as well, the races I'm doing, there's enough sort of internal stress that I don't need that external stress of trying to raise the money as well. And yeah, and then it's if I don't finish too, like I'll feel like I've let everyone down. So I don't know, the charity thing at the moment is just not as much as it's brilliant, it's a great cause and everything, it's just not really going to work for me, I don't think.
You said about internal stress, because that's what you're doing, is you're putting a lot of stress on your body internally during that time. How do you then combat, how do you combat that stress to try and keep your body? And we've been talking about the mind games. Is it breathing techniques? Is it distraction? Like, because it gets real really fast in these situations where your body is under a lot of pressure and everything else, and it's telling you no to stop.
Yeah.
When you're digging deep, where do you think you're digging to?
Yes. I think about, when we're talking about what I think about actually while I'm doing the races, a lot of the time I actually do think, why am I actually doing this? And I've never really come up with just one solid answer. And a lot of the podcasts I listen to and stuff, they sort of say that if you have multiple motivations for doing something, it's a lot weaker than just having one solid thing that is like, it's just your foundation and that's the exact reason why you're doing it. But I'm not sure that really applies to me, to be honest. Or maybe it doesn't, I'm just not aware. But I think there's loads of sort of reasons I do it, to be honest. If we've talked about all the self-development and stuff like that, and the curiosity. Yeah, honestly, I don't really think I have one thing. It just seems to appeal to me holistically when I look at everything. I'm sure there's sort of some psychological reason as well if we go back to my childhood or whatever. But yeah, I don't have a clue on that side of it. For me at the moment, it's just type 2 fun, personal development, curiosity, I think are the big three.
Yeah, I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure getting to know you today and learn all about, I feel like there's a book in you somewhere.
Yeah.
I feel like because all of your experiences you've got, people would like to know more about it and like how you use that mindset across all of them, but also what you've learned about the muscles, the tendons, ligaments. I feel like there's a book in there somewhere.
It's funny you say that, actually. So my girlfriend said this to me as well. And one day I just had a bit of time, so I started writing one. And it has sort of... Have you read The Art of Resilience by Ross Edgley?
Yes.
Yeah, a great book that, isn't it? And mine sort of flowed into... I didn't really want it to be like that, but it sort of has, because when I start looking at all the races I've done, every single one has some ridiculous story. So like the ice skating one and me training at Planet Ice with everyone who's on a date, they're all like stupid stories and stuff like that. But all of them have within them some kind of lesson. So when I was talking about training zones and burning fat and stuff, I have two friends. So one of them is completely carbohydrate reliant. One of them's completely fat reliant. And I can like contrast them and compare them. So yeah, I don't know. Every race I've done has some sort of lesson in it. So I started flowing it through like that. And yeah, I'd like to finish that at some point. I think there would be quite an interesting book there, or like even just a memoir of ridiculous stuff I've done on races, I guess.
I think there's one that's entertainment, but there's also two, there's a lot of information that's in there which other people looking to, you know, compete at this level of endurance would find interesting. Like it's been really fascinating talking to you to find out, you know, what's actually going through your mind, the sort of mind games you need to play to kind of make these things happen. It's and also just that natural curiosity of you want to push yourself further, find out how far you can get to. I love that mindset. Yeah.
Well, I think you have it too, don't you? And it's sort of when you meet someone who's been to that place, it resonates a bit, doesn't it? Which is nice.
If someone wants to learn more about you or get to know you, I don't know if there's anything on socials or kind of how can someone learn more about yourself?
Yeah, I'm pretty hidden at the moment, to be honest, just with all the time I'm spending on my normal job and then this as well. So socials, I don't have any. The only thing, if anyone's interested in sort of long races, I have already written a book called The World's Hardest Endurance Races, which is on Amazon. It's very, very factual and not very anecdotal. It basically started because I had so many races written down in a notes thing on my iPhone. I was like, let's get these somewhere that I can refer to. But it's without a doubt the best sort of most concise place to find the hardest races in the world if anyone's interested. So they can find that kind of stuff there. About me at the moment, just press releases quite often on the stuff I'm doing. And then I'm hopefully going to go back to social media and a website and stuff in the future. So yeah, next few months.
Sounds good. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming today and traveling, and it's been great to get to know you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Simon. Appreciate it.